We have to get better up front, and I was really happy with the progress we made in the spring in the offensive line. But if you're going to play for a championship, then you have to be good in the O-line and D-line. There's nobody that is not good at that level of your team and playing for a championship, and our plan is to do that. And so we feel like we've improved there. We've got great depth in the D-line, but we've improved. 9 of our 10 too deep in the offensive line have played in college football, have started college football games. The only one that hasn't is our backup, our number 2 center, Sheridan Wilson. And what I love about him is I don't know, there's very few guys in the room that love football more than him and are more serious. And so I feel very comfortable with him being, our backup center. And it's really good to have an older group in the O-line and that many starts. We have to have probably as many starts as anybody else in the country when you're talking about Rusty Stats, adding Cole Spencer back in, and Dennis moving to guard, and then the 2 tackles that started for us last year. That's huge, but you got Landon Peterson, who started game for us, Matt Keeler started game for us, Ty Buchanan started game for us, Jacoby Jackson started game for us. And you're talking about a kid that has changed his body. Last year he'd fluctuate between like 335 and 340. He's 315 pounds right now. He's in phenomenal shape. He benched 405 pounds the other day when we maxed on bench. And so it's a guy that's taken Hannah Peterson, our dietitian, very serious about changing his body. I think you're going to see that a lot with our guys, whether it's they were on Team Gain or Team Lean. They took it really serious.
As you go around Texas and you were talking to Red Raider fans, how has the expectation of your fans motivate you, and what do you expect from yourself and the team this year?
Our fans, like when people ask me what I'm surprised the most, is really our passion and our fan base. I mean, I'm a very driven person, but they definitely add fuel to the fire. And I remind our players, they'll hear it today. If we play with the same passion and our fan base cheers for us and has our back on social media and everything like that, then we're going to be a very passionate team. And so I love being around the Red Raiders, and I always say yes to any time I can get in front of Texas Tech fans and alumni to be able to, I take a lot of pride in wearing this logo and being in front of those fans. And so really excited to get this year started and so they can see what we're going to look like.
A lot of incoming freshmen, some rookies about to go through their first season, some local kids from high schools around this area. Is there anybody that stood out to you in the spring that will definitely become a household name for the rest of their careers here?
I'm really excited that the guys that had really good springs that were the mid-year, B.J. Jordan out of Mansfield, Texas, played at Mansfield High. He is our number 2 star, so he is the backup to C.J. Baskerville. And I just don't see me redshirting him. I mean, we talk about it all the time, but, I always look at, when you're looking at redshirt, a couple things. Can they help you win, and are their bodies developed to where they can play at the Big 12 level? He's 210 pounds. He proved in the spring that he can play at this level. And so really excited about him. Mike Dingle, man, he's just like the Energizer Bunny. He had a really, really good spring, and so excited. It's going to be hard to redshirt him just because what he'll be able to do on special teams and progress into playing more at linebacker. So those are 2 guys. Some of the local guys that have had, young guys that have had really good springs, are really good summers. John Curry came into this building at 203 pounds. He weighs 221 pounds right now. He just looks like a totally different guy. Great work ethic. Marcus Ramon Edwards, if you put him in number 9 and you put C.J. Baskerville out there, who's like 215, 216, and him out there, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference of like who was who just because of his development, and fun being around him. He really, really loves football. And so a very serious kid. Has a really good time with his buddies, but he's very serious about being good at football. And so excited to see him. And then another local guy, Caden Carr. Caden came in and was in the 3 deep and then played in the spring game with the 2 some. The O-line wise, you're usually not ready to play, as a freshman, and we have good depth, so hopefully we'll be able to redshirt those guys. But I tell them all the time, you can't wait. You can't have the mindset of waiting. You got to go out and work your butt off and get ready to play, and then let me make that decision with them. And so local guys, man, we got some really good ones.
Josiah this year making the transition from the outside to the inside. How has Coach Ayu specifically helped prepare him now to make that transition for him to be a leader in that room this year?
Well, I'm excited. So being able to coach Terrell Bernard, who's with the Buffalo Bills, he had some natural pass rush from the inside linebacker. Everybody thinks, well, hey, you could just call a blitz or call us, some kind of pressure and guys just get home. There's some guys that just naturally can bend and do that. And what excited me in the spring and then the summer he had was Josiah being able to rush the passer from the edge, and he's been able to take that and bring it inside. And so he definitely is right now our best pass rusher when we bring pressure from the inside. And Coach Deruyter likes to do that. We've got some really good calls. And so that's been able to help a bunch. He's been very serious. He understands. He has 2 years, but he only wants to play 1. He wants to have a year that he can, move to the next level. And so he's another guy. I think he's probably going to check in today at like 235, but he was at one point up to 250 last year, having to play that outside. And so, again, another guy that has leaned up, moving back inside, knowing that just different style and having to drop more in pass coverage. And so really excited. We just got through talking. He was in my office a while ago before we started this. He's excited. That's we lost a lot of experience in the inside linebacker room with losing Krishan and Kosai. But the experience you have in that room with the older guys is Jacob Rodriguez, who had a really good year last year, squatted 600 pounds the other day, and Josiah Pierre. So you do have some really old guys still in that room. Just don't have as many snaps under their belt, but as far as that position, but they have a lot of college snaps.
You're kind of transitioning this year from a team who maybe been the hunter in years past to now being the hunted. I guess take me through that mindset, maybe be able to change through that, and then transitioning that into Wyoming week 1 where, the away schedule really hurt you guys last year, and be able to potentially start off 1-0 with a win on the road.
Man, that's a really good, I didn't think of your last statement that way, but that is, I'm going to use that. Thank you very much. About road, because we didn't play well on the road, until right at the end. I'll take that question first. Hannah and I actually, our dietitian, we're talking about that today because one of the transitions we made, we had a group of older guys that really did not like to eat at certain times before games or eat at halftime or do this at halftime. And I felt like that was one of the things when we got together with the training staff and the strength staff and everything of changing some stuff up. And we did those last 4 games. I thought we played a lot better in the fourth quarter. It was kind of like pulling teeth because people get into their routine. And so I think we have a better plan for road games. We were talking about that because you got to practice that. You just don't all of a sudden say, hey, do it, and then they're not used to it and they, push back. So you got to practice that in practice. So our breaks have to be almost like halftime-ish during practice, and so still doing that. We'll use that because we got some really tough road games this year, and that's going to be a tough one. I'm very excited about that game. One, I've never played there. I know they have a phenomenal fan base, and their brand of football is tough. Their head coach is a tough guy. He's won national championships, and they are a tough team. And so it's going to be one of those deals that we kind of say all the time, it's a brand game, to let us find out how tough we can be. But really excited about that. Tell me, because I love that question. So tell me the first part of that question. I'm sorry.
Just transitioning from being
Oh, yeah. Well, we're not the Big 12 champs, and so that's what we're hunting. So I don't look at it any different. Now, I understand that we have higher expectations. So when we're talking about expectations, I embrace them. I love it. I would rather be in that room than the other room, to where we're expected to win versus no expectations at all. And, hey, we get lucky and hope and all this stuff. We're not into that, man. We love the expectations of being a good football team. And it's my job to temper that, or make sure that we take it 1 week at a time and don't get ahead of ourselves. But I really, the one thing that's easy to talk about is, when people say, well, now maybe you're the hunted. The hunted is K-State. The hunted is TCU. They're the Big 12, two Big 12 teams that played last year. They're the teams that played in the Sugar Bowl. They're the teams that played in the Final Four. And so those are the guys that probably everybody's looking at. They should be. Other than that, that's just honestly media hype that so-and-so's voting so-and-so the so-called champion. The game's played on the field, and those are the guys that got to play at the end of the year. And so I think those are the guys that you really have got to look at, especially with as much talent as both those teams have coming back.
Last year about the power of recruiting in Texas.
Yeah.
And, I mean, what an offseason it has continued to be. Only just a few guys from the 2023 class that are outside of the state of Texas, and so far all of 2024 inside the state of Texas. I guess taking your point further with your deep Texas high school roots, and be able to continue to not let that talent go to waste.
Yeah, it's really important that we make sure we recruit this state and show the respect that these coaches and players deserve. We're going to go try to get the best players. We have a connection. We've done well on our bordering states, and then being able to find Mike Dingle in South Carolina was a big, huge get for us. But there's so much talent, and the two things that we want to make sure we're doing, we want to make sure that we're recruiting West Texas and really going after those guys that should be at Texas Tech, and then making sure we're everywhere we can be in the state of Texas. And we've had this last class that we signed, we had great success in the Houston area, probably more than previous years, and we feel like we're doing the same thing this year. And so making sure that we're really covering the state and finding every single kid that we can. And then we're not scared to go outside the state of Texas. We just want to make sure we're getting the right guys in the red and black.
You got a lot of guys, especially on defense, that made the commitment to take another year of eligibility and come back. What does that say about where the program is now and where it's going, given that you got everybody's buying in for another year here?
We talk a lot about, we'll talk about it today, we talk about being a pro. And that has to do with how you carry yourself, because everybody in this room is a pro. You're professional at the things that you do. And so we talk about that, because not everybody's going to the NFL. But there's a lot of guys that are going to have the opportunity to go to the NFL or play, whether it's in the USFL or XFL. And so we want to train our guys. Every guy will come in here. They'll come in with a notebook. They'll come out with a pen. They'll be taking notes. And I'll show a little clip today of a first-round draft pick that actually brought his notebook in, and in his interview showed him the notes that he was taking. And so I think those guys that decided to come back, they saw that they were playing their best football in their career. If you think about it, both corners played the best. They had the best year they'd ever played. Both defensive line, most productive years they've ever played. And so they wanted to make sure they could capitalize on that. I also think they love Texas Tech. My conversation with Tony Bradford went simply, you have done a lot for this university, but this university's done a lot for you. There's more that you should give back. And I said, think on it for 24 hours and let me know. And he came back, and the thing he said, he goes, Coach, when you said that to me, I did not realize how much this university, I appreciated it and I thought I did, but after thinking about it over 24 hours, I didn't realize the opportunities I've had. And he goes, Coach, I'm coming back because I do have more to give back. And if you ask him right now, his give back is to win the Big 12.
Going back, I guess, to the offensive line, talk about getting Rusty Stats as a center, but also Cole Spencer back from injury and a couple of former teammates playing together.
Yeah, it's huge. I felt like going in spring-wise and being around Cole, I felt like he was our best offensive lineman, last year, and then he didn't get to play. We ended up shutting him down. And so I think he would tell you he's in the best shape he's ever been. He's as strong as he's ever been. He split jerk 396 pounds. I hope nobody's surprised I know these numbers because obviously we're analytic driven and so we're number driven. But that's 396 pounds above his head whenever he split jerked it. And so having him and his leadership, he's one of our captains, is so big. Having Rusty Stats, he has this unique ability to, I think he's like 328, and he runs to every ball when we get a first down or we gain any yards. And so the tempo is only going to speed up with our offense because of him. But it's just as big that him allowing Dennis Wilburn to go to his more natural position, and that's guard. And, I tell everybody, Dennis has a really mean streak on the field. He's a big old teddy bear out off the field. But some of that he didn't get to show because there was so much on his plate. And the kid you think about it, he's playing Power 5 football in the Big 12 and had never snapped a ball in his life at any level until last year, and he started every single game for us at center. So moving him over, and you have 3 grown men. You have guys that have played 5 and 6 years of college football in the middle of that offense. It's going to make a big difference.
A little bit earlier, outside expectations are just that, they're outside. But is there some pride in knowing that the outside is kind of lining up with what your internal expectations are, especially this quickly into your tenure?
Well, I think it definitely pushes. There's so many good things. It's funny you talked about Dion earlier. There's so many good things whenever you have that publicity and people talking about your program, and so it helps in recruiting, no doubt. We use it like crazy whenever it comes to that, and then I think these players understand. We always remind them, hey, we as a group have to put the work in to meet those expectations. It just doesn't happen. There's no magic to it. And but it definitely helps because they understand, and they understand what they can be. And I think it does create more of a buzz inside the building. That's why it's kind of my job to make sure that we temper that and understand you got to go 1-0 each week. And I know that's coach talk, but that is the way it has to be. You have to focus on, we're focused on getting better at certain things, but our countdown is to Wyoming. That is the game. If you ask our guys, I hope that's who they're looking towards. Josiah said he got that question this morning. He said, the game I have circled is Wyoming, and that's the game I have circled. That's exactly who we are going to be. Right now we're focused on ourselves, but when we get closer and closer to the regular season, we're going to be working on Wyoming and their stuff. We're not going to be looking at anything else.
Joey, following up on the whole higher expectations thing, obviously you became accustomed to that, being the hunted in all your time at Cedar Hill and all the big games you played and championships you won. Is there any correlation or is there anything you can use from that time period to guide a team to a higher level or to handling that week to week?
Yeah, I'm going to lean on it a lot, because we have been, a part of that in both ways, meaning we met the expectations, and I can go back and look through different years. 2009, West Texas' own Steve Warren beat us in round 3. They actually made a movie about it. They portray us as such, like almost the Dallas Carter. We both were undefeated. So I always remind Steve, bro, we were both undefeated. You had a good football team. So I start thinking about both. Like in 2006, we had 18 starters back and went 16-0. In 2023, we have 18 starters back, from a bowl game. And, and so you can compare those things of like, because at the end of the day, I don't care how old you are, you still handle expectations a certain way. Luckily I've got a lot more gray hair, so I've got a lot more experience of handling that stuff, but you still have to find a way for young people to manage those expectations. My biggest deal for me is keeping them focused week to week, and then also not allowing the pressure to be more than what it should be. There's good. CJIU always says pressure is a privilege, and so we want them to understand that. But we're going to leave this building every night during camp, and we're going to laugh. The last thing that they do before they leave this building, and they're in here a lot during camp, is we're going to be laughing about something. I've already got jokes planned out that have been planted. A lot of them are about the coaching staff, and so we'll laugh about that. Hayden Wigington's going to kick us off tomorrow night with some of his songs, and we'll have some freshmen sing along and all that stuff. But we're going to walk out of here laughing and trying to alleviate some of that pressure on our players, and it's our job to make sure we're doing that. But I'm going to lean on it a bunch because I've been really lucky to be a part of some really good football teams.
A couple of moments ago, you were talking about the teams that were the hunted. You said Kansas State and TCU. You did not mention the team that was picked to win the conference. How hunted is Texas?
But, I mean, honestly, I sent Sark a text after the media day, the day one. I listen to everybody's. I've listened to most of the SEC, everybody's press conferences. I love to listen and get coach's thoughts. I thought he did a great job. He's got a very good football team. Offensively, they're as talented as anybody in the country. And so I think they're got a chance to be really, really good. But my deal is I always look at the people that have won it, and that I know exactly who won it, and we went 0-2 against both of those teams, and so we've got to make sure that we're ready for each week. But I always look at and they have so much coming back. I mean, K-State has their whole offensive line coming back. They've got the quarterback that quarterbacked at the end of the year in the bowl game. Kleiman has won a national championship as a head coach and does a great job. Sonny, played for it last year. I know it didn't end up the way he wanted it, but I know he beat Michigan, of all this conference realignment and how great I guess that conference is. Well, their conference champion got beat by our conference champion, our team that I guess came in second in our conference. And so, I just know that, and Sonny has a ton back on defense and 3 really good offensive linemen back, maybe more, but I know 3 really good offensive linemen. So I think those are the guys that everybody's chasing.
Texas and Oklahoma leaving after this year, to what degree do you think it's important to be at your best over these next 12 months, to be prepared to be the team that kind of fills that power vacuum? And what's the struggle, or what's the competition going to be like to be sort of the top dog in the new Big 12?
That's a great question. Because everybody in this conference has the opportunity to take a step forward and be the leader in the conference. We don't want to wait till 2024 to be that leader. We have an opportunity right now because we have a really good football team to be in the mix, the conversation of being one of the best teams in the Big 12, and so we want to take advantage of it. And so I don't know if that comes into any conversation whenever it's talking to the team, but I promise you I think about it. I've thought about it a lot because, when you have opportunities, and it's one of my favorite words, you don't want opportunities to pass you by. And so I'm definitely thinking about that a lot because there is a good opportunity to take a big step forward.
Coach, is there any update on A.J. McCarty's eligibility?
No, it'd be, that's what's crazy. It's probably going to be all the way up until we've turned everything in. That's a tough thing. There's so many things that go in front of the NCAA. And so it'd be interesting. The one thing is it was too important to get a player that I know very well, that I was part of recruiting, and not wait. We're trying to, when we think about recruiting, this is just kind of globally, when we think about the transfer portal, we're going to recruit high school athletes and we're going to go into the portal to make sure we can grow our recruits up in stages that they should be, to where we're not playing really young guys that aren't ready to play a ton of snaps in the Big 12. And so we're trying to think ahead. We do, but like I'm talking 6 months to a year ahead of looking at the roster and, his opportunity to get a really good football player. And so we were like, no matter what happens, we know he has eligibility left past this year. And so we wanted to make sure we could get him, and he's been awesome. He's had a great second part of the summer once he got here, and, excited. He's excited to practice tomorrow for the first time, like a true organized practice. And so love the kid, man. He's a special talent, but man, he's a really good kid, and he's got a great spirit about him. Mom and dad are awesome. Another kid, when we cut Texas, I still consider Brownwood, West Texas, and the way the map is, cut for us. And so it's good to get a Brownwood line in Lubbock, Texas.
Week 1, you go to BYU a little bit later in the year.
Yeah.
As far as like altitude goes, do you kind of look at that trip to Wyoming as like a precursor to when you go to Provo?
Yeah, we're actually going out a day early in both of those. We practice. Our practice on Friday is called Fast Friday. We're trying to get somewhere between 16 and 20 reps. Now, we get a lot more reps, but we're trying to get between 16 and 20 reps at somewhere between 75 and 80% of your max velocity. And we check that in real time of if you get like Miles Price, he hits his 16 really fast. So we're like slowing Miles Price down. We're going to do that at altitude so we can get our guys, ready. We're going to take more guys to Wyoming. We can only travel 70 in the Big 12. We're going to take 80 to, maybe 82 to 83 guys to have more guys to play. Y'all know, because we went through the Iowa State cold, I don't shy away from playing in different places because I don't want them to be surprised. If they're looking at me funny, I'm going to be able to say, I told you so, bro. Like, you should have got your mind right from the get-go, because it's so mental. I mean, I know it's physical, but it is so mental to be able to handle that and be mentally tough to handle that environment. And so we're going to do that against Wyoming. And since we're doing it against Wyoming, we're going to go ahead and do it against BYU. I think it's going to be really good for us because it is a little different. So it's going to, for me, it's two things. I'm getting used to the altitude, and then I'm also saying, hey, this is different. So different must mean that this must be a pretty big game, and it is. And so I think that's going to help us get prepared for that game 1. All right. Thanks, Coach. All right. Thank y'all.
Hey, guys. Good to see everybody back again.
Who wants to kick us off?
Thank you. First of all, welcome back. I'm very excited. Two guys that a lot of people have been talking about, Miles Cole and Steve Linton, throughout spring and now heading into fall camp. What is the most impressive thing about that duo, or just them individually, that'll be a force this year?
As a duo, the first thing that stands out is their size, length, and athleticism. I mean, they're two impressive guys. You know, obviously we had an impressive one last year in Tyree, but Miles might be bigger. He can bend, he can burst, chase the ball extremely well, and plays with the high motor. The thing he lacks is the actual game experience and probably a little bit of confidence of not have gone through that. I think it was unfortunate for us and for Tyree, obviously, to get the injury late, but it gave Miles a chance to start making plays. And to see him at the bowl game, excuse me, make some key plays was really important for us. And I think more importantly for him from a mental standpoint of, hey, I can play at this level and not just play, but be an impactful player, which we expect him to be. Steve coming in, you know, we saw the tape from last year, very dynamic, explosive player. In our opinion, we thought he was, for us, better to be on an edge, and he played more inside. Since we've put him out as one of our edge defenders, he's really picked it up well. He has all the skill set of what we're looking for in a boundary edge player. He can, number one, rush the passer. He's got an elite get off, can bend. He's extremely long. He's a guy that can play in space in coverage when we ask him to do that and in some of our, you know, disguised sim pressure stuff. And he's a guy that, even though he's thin, does a great job of using his hands and setting an edge and plays physically. So I'm really excited about the potential for those guys this year.
Those last guys to the draft also too, due to graduation, some new guys stepping up and some new transfers too. What is very impressive about CJ Baskerville that you can really see him take off this year?
Yeah, CJ has been extremely impressive to me in that, I know he's from Texas, but he came in here like he was on the team. He's jumped right in with our players. They've welcomed him with open arms. I think probably, some guys knew him from back in high school. But he's a very smart player. He's got better length, size than what we had there last year. He's all of 6'3", close to 220 pounds, can really run, and is a smart football player, which is not a bad thing to have as our field edge or our star position player. We expect him to be an impactful player for us, and that position, needs to be. We had a great one last year in Muddy Waters, and losing him, last fall when we lost him, I thought, oh man, we got to find somebody to step up. We had some good young players, but the difference is CJ's played, Division I football, and did it at a high level at a different school, and wanted to come back to the state, and we're certainly glad he did.
Next we'll go to Jarrett in the black. Hey, Coach. Overall numbers on defense weren't great last year, but third down defense, fourth down defense, red zone defense were all great. What do you attribute that to, and how can you replicate that this season?
Well, I think I attribute the better stats that we did with our guys' buy-in. Coach talks to them constantly, and we do on defense as well, as the how do we win a football game? And, there are certain elements to that you've got to win in order to win a football game. In fact, it's right up here on the wall of our plan to win. And one of those is win the situations. And our guys have bought into that mentality. We talk to them all the time about, we're going to be a different team as far as on offense going for it on fourth down. And the natural reaction on defense is, yeah, go for it as long as you get it. And, just like the fans. And then when you don't, a lot of teams, if you got to go respond to that, they have a hard time doing it. Well, on the flip side, on fourth down, we're used to going against our offense all the time in practice. We kind of know what types of plays to expect in certain situations. And so fourth down becomes just another down for our guys. And we know that can be an impactful down because it turns the ball over if you can stop them, or it continues to drive if you don't. And so our guys bought into that. Same thing in the red zone. We have a draw the line mentality that, hey, if they got down here, we got to make them kick the ball. We're not letting them either run it or throw it in. Now, the flip side of that is we were really good down there, and we were really good in those situations. We got to get much better on the open field stuff. And the biggest reason was we had breakdowns in coverage or gap alignments. And so we've got to fix those and make someone earn, the plays that they get. And this is a very good league with a lot of talent and really good offensive coordinators that can scheme things up. But we're talking about the ones where someone just doesn't do their assignment because they were confused. And that's on us as coaches, and we've got to fix that. And it's on our players to step up and understand it as well.
Jacob Rodriguez and Josiah have been mentioned a lot at inside linebacker. Who else is in the mix there inside?
We've got some younger players. Ty Kana had a good spring. Ben Roberts had a really good spring. He might be slowed down here the first couple of days. Had a great summer, but got tweaked up a little bit during the last couple of weeks of camp, training camp, before the camp. Wesley Smith has been a guy who walked on here, played a lot on special teams for us, plays with a lot of confidence. We just got our numbers from our strength staff. He's a guy that all he does is he's like the most pound for pound, strongest guy, fastest guy on our team. And really smart player, just a lunch pail guy that goes to work and just wants to go play football. And love the kid's attitude, and I think he's going to find a way. Tyreek Matthews played for us some last year. He's going through some health things right now, so hopefully we'll get him back here in a couple weeks and let him get in the mix. But we've got a pretty good nucleus of guys to compete with those guys who are projected to start.
Coach, you've got Tony and Jalen up front, veteran presences up there, but how important will it be for guys like Duda and Trayvon and Robert to get in the mix as well to kind of prepare for the seasons to come?
Well, one guy you forgot was Quincy. He transferred in and he jumped right in. In my mind, kind of like Quincy, where he's played some college football, in a different league, but he wanted to come compete, and he's done that very, very well. So it's really important in college football because, as you know, injuries are part of this game. But even without injuries, in order to play at an elite level, to play your hardest and fastest, if you're a 300-pound man, it's really hard to play 90 plays in a row. You can't do that at the same level, play rep, one to play 90. In an ideal world, we have guys from, maybe 45 at the top end, 60 reps. Well, if you're playing a game that happens to go 90 reps, you got to have somebody else in there. And even if it goes to a normal 65, 70, you want those reps split up to where there's not a huge drop off in either talent, production, ability, and you got to have a guy that's there in case there is an injury that there is absolutely no drop off. So I think we've got really good depth that Coach Fitch has done a great job of developing. And it's going to be a fun camp to see which one gets to the top because at times Duda's done really well. Quincy, flashed a lot this spring. Trey has not been out there, but we've seen the potential of him. So, we just got to get those guys out there playing.
Where do you think the opportunity is to improve the most on defense?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the explosive plays. We gave up way too many explosive plays last year. You can't as a coach say, well, hey, we played good for 68 plays, but we gave up these, 6 plays over 30 yards of play. I mean, it's just not good defense. I think one of the things we did well last year was we run really hard to the ball, which tends to limit explosive plays. But what you've got to do is play smart football. And I've got to do a good job as a play caller of making sure we put our guys in the best position to play. And if they're not ready mentally for whatever is called for, then that's on me not to call that. And so we're much better now. Having been through the year, our guys seen where the errors were going through spring. We'll go through another 20 whatever practices here in camp, and if we can limit those explosives that we gave up, we can play much better defense.
The example of you were 43% in the red zone, but you gave up 18 touchdowns of 30 yards or more. You were good inside, but then sometimes outside of that, you were a little more lax.
And a lot of those were the explosive plays that we gave up. You go back to the Kansas game. We get a 4th down and 1 on their own end of the field. If we stop them, we got a great chance to really see some momentum in the football game. But instead, we make a mental error, and somebody doesn't take his man down the field, and, the guy's wide open for an easy touchdown. We had way too many of those type of plays. And so it's getting our guys to understand how to communicate, who needs to be the lead communicator, and drilling them enough in situations of what do we expect to see in these type of situations. In a fourth down in 1 or 2, there's a pretty high likelihood that they're not just going to run the ball. There's going to be a play action. And get your eyes, the most important thing is getting your eyes where they need to be. And so if we can, again, eliminate those explosive or limit those explosive, there's really good offenses in the league. And if we constantly put our guys in one-on-ones, and I love our matchups with Malik and Rashad, I thought that he did great jobs in one-on-one most of the year. But every now and then, they're going to get their share of one-on-one catches. What we've got to do is not give up we got to eliminate the uncontested catches. And that's what we had way too many of last year.
Anything else for Coach Deruyter before we let him go?
Oh, you guys are easy.
What's up? Good, how are you? Oh, yeah.
All right, you guys named a starting QB to start this summer. I guess when you were looking at the quarterback competition between Tyler and Barron pushing one another, what stood out to you, and why do you think this could be Tyler's year with this being his 6th year?
Yeah, I mean, looking at Tyler just by himself, I mean, he's gone through so much stuff, and those things can either really, you can become weaker from that or you become stronger, and I think he truly did become stronger. I was really excited for him in that bowl game to really get back healthy so everybody could see what he's like when he was healthy, and he played an unbelievable game, and again, he had the food poisoning that game and all those things too, so he wasn't really 100%, but I think from everything that he's kind of gone through, he's become stronger. And I think that mentally changed him a little bit. I think last year there's a little bit of uncertainty for him. Like, we're having a 3-way quarterback battle, so my reps are a little bit lower. This year it was just a true 2-way battle, and he felt really confident going into it that if he would just do what he was capable of doing, that he would be the guy. And, it was a great competition throughout the spring. They both did a really good job, but Tyler's he just brought it every day. Just protected as far as protecting the football goes, understanding the run game, checks, and some of those things, and just his football IQ and his leadership. I mean, as far as true leadership goes, it's been a long time since I've been around one like that just understands on the field and off the field how to lead these guys and get these guys going. And he really is, he's kind of the heartbeat of this team, the way I look at it, watching how he approaches every day, and he's bringing everybody else along with him.
And speaking of another place for leadership, offensive line too. What have you seen from them in the spring? And when you're looking back at last year, what's one thing you guys were really wanting to get better on with that group?
First and foremost, just being able to push people around a little bit more. We needed to really improve at pad level and being able on 3rd and 1 to hand the ball to Taj Brooks instead of having to run the quarterback to add that hat in the run game. And that room is completely different. I think that those starting 5 guys really gelled together. You got a lot of experience there now. You got the super seniors at the 3 interior guys there that have all played a lot of football. You got a guy, bringing Cole Spencer back. I mean, he's the real deal, and he's a really good football player. And having him back in his leadership and his experience up there, I think, helps all those guys keep coming. You got Rusty, again, a guy that's played in this system, that he's kind of the Energizer Bunny, if you will. I mean, he just goes, and he's going to make, he kind of keeps that O-line up. And then really the big thing with him is being able to bump Dennis back to his natural position too and let him play guard where he can play a little bit more freely. And then, those tackles, again, those were our 2 starting tackles last year, and just getting getting their confidence up and getting them more repetition and all that stuff. I think that's going to be a huge game changer for us this year. Just those guys, the continuity's huge there. They're all best friends. A lot of gel went through the spring and through the summer, and so I think that's going to be a huge impact for us this year.
Hey, Coach, obviously Tyler ran a lot in the bowl game. Do you foresee him not necessarily running that much, but is that going to be a big part of the game plan, QB called runs?
Definitely don't want to run him that much. Never wanted to run the quarterback that much, but just at times last year when we get into that time of the game, I felt like that's what we had to do to win football games. So you're definitely going to see him run. He wants to run the ball. A lot of those games, in the bowl game, for example, I don't know how many true quarterback run calls we had, but just him to be able to improvise back there and scramble around and get us some big yards at times, that's something that he's talented at and he wants to run. The bigger thing for him is let's get some yards, let's get down, let's get out of bounds, let's slide, some of those things. But definitely don't want to live in the quarterback run game world, which again, I think you're going to see that's going to help with the offensive line we just talked about. It's going to help this year, being able to just, hand Taj Brooks and Cam those balls and letting those guys go. But 1,000,000% you're going to see some quarterback run game, just hopefully not as much as we had to do last year.
I'm interested in how some of the new speedy guys like Valdez and McCray, how you plan on utilizing them, how they can impact the offense.
Yeah, I'll start with Dre. Just having Dre out there, that's a different element. I don't want to sit here and say Dre's going to have 80 catches, but at the end of the day, with a guy like that can really, really run, that scares the defense. So now they're not just going to creep up on you and try to play catch technique at 5 to 6 yards, because if they want to play catch technique, a guy like Dre's just going to run right by you. And so that's going to be huge. And same thing with Cam. The small dose that we got to see of Cam last year, he's got great acceleration through the hole, and he's kind of a one-cut runner, and he cuts and he goes, and excited about him. Last year just with Taj and SaRodorick really kind of getting the bulk of those carries. You're going to see a lot more Cam this year, and excited about him.
We'll go to David and then Zach.
Back to the offensive line. Not that you didn't trust the group you had last year, but do you feel a little bit more comfortable having Rusty and Cole there and what they know about the system?
Yeah, as far as like the system goes, I felt great about those guys last year, where there just wasn't as much continuity last year. And, we battled a few injuries here and there where kind of, Landon Peterson got hurt, so we're bumping somebody here. Your right tackle got hurt, so now you're bumping Ty Buchanan in for a game or two. You bumped Matt Keeler in for a couple games there. And so if we can keep these 5 healthy, just the continuity and all that experience that they have had, I think that's going to just pay dividends for us up front. And definitely, there's so much on our center and our offense. We let him pretty much run the show up there. And with the guy that started 2 years in this system, like Rusty, who gets it and is a super sharp football player, I think, again, he's going to kind of be the energizer bunny of that group and getting those guys going. And I think, the other guys will just feed off him.
Hey, Coach, just kind of curious on Marcus Ramon Edwards, local talent here, and being able to, it sounds like he bulked up maybe a little bit over the offseason, kind of comparing him to C.J. Baskerville. I guess your thoughts on him and his talent, how are you going to use him this year?
Well, Marcus is going to start on defense, actually. So he's going to kind of be at that star position. So, he's, clearly the local guy. I've been able to watch him play a lot here. He looks really, really good this summer. Looking forward to seeing kind of how he comes along this year. But he looks great and had a great, summer this year, and just looking forward to seeing how he goes.
And then a deep group in the wide receiver group last year, a young group, and that's happening once again this year. Able to put in your system last year, as speedy as it was, as well, have all that success. How big is that to have all that returning talent and be able to build upon the building blocks that you had last year?
Yeah, it's awesome. Just those guys are a lot more comfortable now, year 2 in the system. A lot of confidence running through that room right now with a lot of those guys coming back. Those guys really started to come along. I felt like those last few games of the year last year, Loic and Jaron Bradley, those last 2 games against Oklahoma and Ole Miss really came out and had a big 2 games there. And Miles Price, him now, he's gotten bigger and stronger as well, and he's stayed healthy this whole time. So having guys like that, those leaders in those rooms that are also bringing these younger guys around. So just being able to have all that talent back, a lot of continuity there, a lot of familiarity with the quarterbacks now. The quarterbacks feel more confident being with those guys, and that chemistry is just a lot higher this year than it was last.
Zach, kind of following up on what you just said, to what extent, to what degree can you have to what extent, what degree do you expect a second-year jump in this offense?
Yeah, I expect it to be huge. Again, just I feel a lot better with how we're bolstering up the offensive line this year. Got a lot of running back experience back with Taj and Cam. Basically the entire receiver crew's back from last season, and those guys are really moving around well right now. And then, you had the tight end room in there too. All those guys are back, and those are all a bunch of talented guys. And again, year 2 in the system for this quarterback is huge. And again, mainly for him, just having that chemistry with all of his guys around him, I think makes everything else go a lot better. So expecting a huge jump this year offensively overall.
And Dre McCray, Joey has said that plans to use him both inside and outside. Does he strike you as more one or the other, or what do you how much do you expect him to be inside? How much do you expect him to be outside, or does it kind of depend on available personnel, injuries, or just kind of what it looks like in camp?
Yeah, I mean, he's probably more naturally fitted for us in the slot a little bit, but he's a guy that he played a lot of outside for us this spring, and he's a really sharp guy. He can do both. So he's going to be a guy that we try to move around and again, try to really utilize his speed and get him in some good matchups. But you'll see him inside and out, but probably more naturally fits inside for us.
Coach, can you speak to the speed of this team compared to a year ago? That's one of the things that I think you had said you wanted to see improvement on, but just overall and how much that helps your team.
Yeah, major gains in team speed over the offseason and this summer. I heard Coach McGuire mention the numbers earlier of the whole team, how much faster we've gotten. And again, speed is something that you can't coach, and that scares people. So whenever you have good team speed, that's going to help open up everything else, helps open up the run game, helps open up the underneath throws. So again, I think that's going to be another huge impact that we're going to have, is going to be able to run by some people this year. And even if you maybe can't always run by them, it's going to at least keep them honest and keep those DBs a little bit deeper, which again opens up everything else up underneath.
What is Rusty Stats' strength?
Man, he's got a lot. Football IQ, probably. Again, we put so much on the center's plate. He makes all the calls up there, and him and Coach Hamby have a great relationship, and he sees it just how Coach Hamby sees it. And so being able to go up there and make the correct calls, in both the pass protection and the run game, and making sure that we're blocking the right people and all those things, I think that's going to be a big deal. And just probably the other big thing is just the speed and the tempo that he plays at. I mean, he just goes, and he's an interesting guy because he's a big offensive lineman, and he seems to never ever get tired. And so when you have a guy like that, he's going to be able to push the tempo even better this year with him, just because when you watch him on film, he's always pretty much the first one to the ball, and that's going to pay off for us a lot this year too, being able to snap the ball quicker and get more snaps off, and hopefully that'll make the defense not be lined up when we do want to play with tempo as well.
And finally, for me, is there an area where you'd like to see improvement, whether it's better production on first or second down, or something within the position groups?
Yeah, I mean, overall, offensively, I think there's 3 things that we're really focusing on this year, that if we can improve in these areas, we'll make, drastic jumps here. First off, we've got to protect the quarterback, and, that starts and ends with me, too. I mean, I've got to help our guys out and get them in good scenarios, and that's not just talking offensive line, that's talking running backs and tight ends whenever they're in helping them, too, and on the quarterback to get the ball out quick, and some of those. We've got to protect the quarterback a lot better. We've got to protect the football. Again, and that starts in my room with the quarterbacks. We turned the ball over way too much last year, and we can't give the other team more opportunities to score touchdowns. So that's another big key. And then just be more explosive, which kind of we've hit on that with some of these skill players and some of the speed we have this year. We've got to be able to create more explosive plays and hopefully kind of try to stay out of those 4th down scenarios as much as we like going for it, but trying to not live in 4th down as much as we did last year.
How much confidence do you have going into this season if Barron were needed to step up after coming off of last year, and he did have to step up?
Very confident. Yeah, Barron's, in my opinion, he's made one of the biggest jumps on our offense as far as just getting better every day. He was a very raw football player last year, but you see the flashes of a really elite quarterback. He does a lot of things that you can't coach either. So for him, a lot of it was just getting more repetition, He hadn't played a lot of football, college football, until last year when we threw him into that Oklahoma State game. So I think just him getting the reps and him getting the taste of college football and really going out there, because this spring, he was night and day difference from where he was in fall camp of 2022 to where he was in spring of 23. He was off the charts. Football IQ was so much better, understand the system better, understand the run checks and what passes we like against certain coverages and some of those things. And just comfortability in the pocket too, I think was something a little bit different. Clearly what we're doing offensively is not what he did in high school. So just being able to get the speed of the game and some of those things, I think has really helped him. So, I have full confidence in Barron if something ever happened and he needed to step into play. I feel very confident with him.
Any last questions?